Hey, welcome to I'm That Mom, the podcast about motherhood without the pressure of perfection. My name is Katie. I'm a self-taught entrepreneur who started my baby company while pregnant and grew it to an 8-figure business as a single mom of 3. Join us as we discuss the fun, funny, and messy parts of motherhood. We're certainly not experts. We're just here to support all the moms and hopefully, collectively, we don't completely it up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Here we are again.
I know.
I can't believe they let us keep doing this.
I can't believe
right?
it either. I would think that we'd get fired, especially since we don't look at the topics until we show up.
Exactly.
There's zero prep that goes into this.
I think it makes it better though. Almost, it's more organic.
Yes, and sometimes we have the best conversations sitting here, so they're not even rolling yet. Like our whole conversation we just had.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So today, what are we going to talk about today?
Today is setting a good example, which I find humorous that they have you and I talking about.
It is very ironic.
Yeah, it is. Because is it about us setting a good example as moms, or is it about teaching our kids how to set a good example, or is it like all of
So
the
they probably go
things?
hand in hand, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But I think more importantly, like training our kids to almost be better than we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we wrap that podcast. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, so where do we start? Like teaching, setting a good example.
So it probably starts with school, probably, right? That's where your kids go. They're there the most.
Friends.
Friends. How they interact with like teachers, being respectful, classmates.
Yeah. I mean, earlier we were talking about like even just having your kids apologize. You know, I think teaching them the ability, my youngest is the best at this. And I don't know that I taught her any differently, but it's also made me a better mom dealing with it. Because she's 12, right? Almost 13. I've had many moments where I've lost my temper and yelled at her. And I've had to be like, I go up to her room because you feel bad, right? Like when you're the crazy mom that you're like, you had a bad day, you come home, they're annoying, you lose it. And then you're like, just go up. Yeah. And so then I feel bad, and I've learned through the years that I need to go upstairs or into their room and say, I'm sorry, this isn't about you. Like, mommy had a really hard day. I didn't mean to yell at you, you know, and then I give them a hug, and half the time they're like annoyed still. But it does kind of help me manage my emotions. And actually, if I'm telling the truth, it makes me not feel so bad about losing my temper.
Yeah, it's a little bit for us and for them.
But I think by me doing that, Lila now mimics my behavior. And so if she is a complete brat or like demanding, I'm really just being a brat, like especially getting ready for school, sometimes in the car, she'll just get in and she'll be like, I'm sorry, mommy, I didn't mean to act like that. And I'm like floored.
And you immediately forgive. You're like, oh my God.
Oh, I immediately. And I'm like, and then I tell her, I'm so proud of you that you do that. Mm-hmm. Like that is a really good, like,
reinforcing the good things that they do.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes them take accountability. I think that's a huge thing for people in today's world is
totally
owning your shit,
owning your behavior. Like I talk to my kids a lot about not getting into the drama because they're a little bit older. I think that kind of goes hand in hand even with like the conversation of bullying and you know with little kids early on in life. And so you know, my kids will be texting. It still is really Lila that I'm mostly involved with because my teenagers are, you know.
Well, they're teenagers.
They're teenagers, yeah. So, and they're in college and whatever. And I'm hoping they learn this early on. But like, if some of their little friends will have drama about like, you know, and they girls tend to gang up on other girls.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
They'll all be friends. And this happens early on. It gets really bad in middle school, and then in high school too. And so I try to tell Lila, like, you know, don't just gang up on the one person, like understand where their feelings are coming from. And I'm always like, and be the person that's friends with everybody. Mm-hmm. Don't take sides, you know?
Yeah. No, even Grace, so she's 6, but I remember when she was 5, she would come home and she would say, Mom, all the girls said that they couldn't play with me or didn't want to play with me. And so then I just went and did the monkey bars by myself. And so when she would tell me that, at first you're like, that's so sad. But there's always 2 stories to every story, too. Because I'm always like, well, Grace, were you not being very nice?
Were you being bossy?
Yeah, were you being bossy? Were you not playing very nice? Maybe that's the reason. But then also the other side, too, is I always tell her, I was like, don't care so much. Like, go find the people that do want to spend time with you. Go find the people that do want to play with you. I was like, just because this group of 3 girls doesn't, but I bet there's a whole nother group of girls that you've never even played with that would be really fun. Yeah. And she's usually really receptive. And then the next day she'll come home and she's got this whole other set of friends. And so it means that something must have clicked with her where she had the moment and she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go over here and do this thing with somebody else.
I think you bring up a good point. I think it's very important today for us to have real conversations with our kids about their behavior. I do not ever remember my mother early on sitting down and talking about daily I mean, I even talk about sex now with my teenagers. I'm very open. I'm like, we communicate about everything. There's, from birth control to whatever. But even when they're little, I think it's so important to even bring up well, why do you think, Cindy was mean to you? And kind of having the conversation.
Having those questions to make them really think about it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, I did kind of push her one time. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, how do you think that made her feel?
Yeah.
And going through the motions.
Yes. Or maybe maybe not pushing, but even as easy as just dealing with how to communicate, if they come home with their feelings hurt about something.
It is probably the worst though. And your gut instinct as a mom, you want to believe everything they're saying.
Yes.
You want to assume that they were the most ill-treated. Oh my gosh, how terrible is it? Why, my sweet little kid, why would anybody not want to play with her? But then I have to step back and go, okay, I know Grace. Yeah. I know who she is. I know who her mama is. Yeah. I'm like,
well, and so you've been through enough experiences in your life to know that the truth is always in the middle.
It is.
I mean, every scenario I've ever been in, right, where I'm like, so-and-so is so wrong. I think everyone believes in their own truth.
Yeah.
And so maybe Grace feels like she acted one way, but the other person feels like she acted a different way. And so helping the kids understand that, well, maybe the other friend is more sensitive than you are.
It's like someone...
You think it's a joke, but they think it's not a joke. Or the opposite, right? What if she's the one where a little kid said something to her that she took personally?
Yeah.
And maybe that child, made it. So I think teaching our kids to communicate early on and talk about their emotions. Almost recognize their emotions.
Yeah.
I legit can't remember being young and recognizing my emotions. Can you?
Somebody once told me something that's kind of stuck with me is the emotions you feel are real, but the reasons behind them usually are not.
Yeah.
And if you think about that for a second, it's you can feel an emotion and it's very real to you, right? But when you really step back and you think about the things that drove that emotion, sometimes they're skewed. Sometimes it's a misrepresentation or a miscommunication. And when you really get to the root of it, you're like, oh, I didn't really have a good reason to have all this emotion that I'm now projecting out into the world or to other people.
Yeah. And then learning how to deal with your own emotions, right? Because there's no, I just pop a little anxiety pill and I feel great again.
But just take a little shot.
Yeah, but you can't do that.
You can't do that at 6.
No, and nobody talked about anxiety 20 years ago. And I do think kids can get anxiety.
Oh, for sure.
Right? It's that bubble up feeling of they're not sure how to deal with this situation. And I think teaching our kids resilience.
So is that something to look forward look towards in your kid and say, okay, are they anxious about going to school? And then trying to uncover the reason why?
Yeah. And
because you want them to be excited about going to school and be with their friends.
Totally. And not being the mom that just fixes the problem for them.
There's enough of those out there. We need less of those.
We need less of them. What are you doing for your kid by not teaching them the coping mechanisms to deal with whatever they're doing? Now, I'm not saying you just tell them what to do and then you set them free. You definitely have to hold their hand. And, a 5-year-old's not going to learn overnight how to cope with behavioral issues with other little girls or whatever. But also don't be the mom that just go straight to the principal and try to understand the scenario. I
think that's the biggest part is trying to understand rather than just assume you already know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's good and bad examples of this, but I think going to the teachers and understanding that the teachers aren't trying to pick favorites. Most teachers truly want, they know your child very well. They're probably
and they see how they interact with the children.
And they see it, yeah. And so if a teacher's saying, well, so-and-so is being very aggressive to her friends or the little girls don't want to play with her because of these reasons, instead of getting defensive, listen to it and then address it with your kiddos, and on both ways, whether your kid's being the aggressive one or also maybe yours is the one that's being left out of everything. I always joke that I'm glad my girls have always gotten in trouble for talking in school. As I'm sure yours do too.
It's kind of a thing.
It's a thing. But also, I love that they speak their mind and that they communicate and that they're social, because what I don't want is them to be like a wallflower.
Yeah, or afraid to speak up for themselves.
Yeah, or afraid to speak up for themselves. Yes. Like, you know, we shouldn't joke about it, but truly when they're like, what do you teach your kids if somebody comes up and like punches them in the hall? Well, I'm telling my kids, will you punch them back? You know, like you don't.
However hard they hit you, you hit them back twice as hard.
Yeah, exactly. So not the best lesson in life, but also that I want to teach my kids that you stand up for yourself, to kids and to other adults, but in a respectful way, you know? And yeah, I think setting a good example as adults in children's lives, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, whether you're even like an older sibling, like that's a lot of responsibility. And I think that we can impact them earlier on in life than we think.
No,
right?
This doesn't have anything to do with school, but I have this very vivid moment that I remember when Grace was, I think, 3. We were in TJ Maxx and we were waiting in line, and the line was very long. And I remember this mom standing in front of me, and she was on the phone, and she had her little girl that was about the same age, maybe a little bit older actually, and she was just talking so terrible, and she was complaining about the store and about, it's like, it just felt like she just went on and on and on and on. Yeah. And me and Grace are literally back here having like the time of our life. Like, we're hanging out, we're just like, yeah, we get it, it sucks, but we're trying to enjoy. And I just remember thinking, like, even moments like that, like and this is kind of judgmental, I guess, and I get that people have bad days, but it was like, little kids are sponges. And it was like, every moment you have in life, like, they perceive how you react to it. So if the line's really long and you're annoyed, like, they're going to pick up on how you react. So then when they're in a line, they're going to be probably annoyed
too. Yeah.
So I just went back to that little moment. I was like, if we can have a different perspective, like as the mom or the parent, like your kids will totally pick up, and that'll be their perception of moments in life.
And they witness.
And it's hard. And I know it's not easy always, but
no, it's like when I go up and apologize to my kids, I know it's because they just acted like a crazy person, but then also she's mimicking that behavior. And I'm like, well, my other 2 kids are screwed because I didn't teach them that lesson, but
let me know when you figure out because the step 2, like it's they go and apologize, but it's like, how do we get them to not go to step 1 first so they don't have to apologize?
I'll never figure
That's
that
the hard
out.
part.
Maybe when I have grandbabies, I'll know it better and be like, this is exactly how you do and what you do.
Maybe
but
so.
It's a lot. Yeah. I do think
there's no secret trick to it though.
There is not. And I think it's important for us to realize that it's not just about what we're communicating to our kids, that, like you said, they're learning by osmosis. Mm-hmm. And it's how we interact, even with our husbands, with our families.
Ooh, let's not go there, Katie.
Yeah, we know with the other, and you do have to treat each child, your own children, differently because they all need different things.
So my mom always said she had 4. I loved you all differently.
You do, yeah, and some of them at more times you love more than others. Yeah. At other times, but
currently Lila's her favorite.
I know. Just for today.
Yeah. You cycle through them.
Yeah. But it is hard, and you've got a preschooler and a first grader. Mm-hmm. I've got a 6th grader and a junior in high school, and then a handful of college kids. And so, yeah, you do. It's a lot of pressure.
You hope that they've learned those things before they get to junior high, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where it really gets.
It does. Messy. And you can't, you don't know if your kids are going to be, shy and, into reading or into band or into basketball, or really that's part of where their behavior comes out. And I do think you can't, you always said you wanted Grace to be into sports and all the things, and she loves princess
dance
dresses
and cheer and all the things. And
so that's just her, and it's and it's up to us to set the example of figure out what you love to do, right, and then do that as often as you can for these kiddos. But it's also teaching them the skill sets of just life in general. And I don't know. I think I love the idea of resilience with kids, because I think parents tend to not teach their children resilience. I think we tend to protect them. And I think part of learning resilience is learning how, when things go wrong or they're hard, how do you bounce back from it quicker?
I recently told Grace, we set this new rule at the house. I said, if you don't put a snack in your backpack, guess what? You don't have a snack the next day, because mom's not going to get up every morning and make sure that you've done it. You're old enough. You know what this means. You do it the night before. And I can't tell you how many days she's gone to school without a snack, but she will learn eventually to put the snack in the backpack if she wants a snack the next day.
Yes.
It's a small thing, and I don't think I'm withholding anything from her. Like, she eats plenty at school, but it teaches her to, she's responsible for something.
But it also, like, if she comes home and is like, all the other kids have snacks and their moms do a special, note with
That's
it.
where you got to say a little tough love. I'm like, I'm sorry, we talked about it.
And teaching them responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think that's a great example. And I actually think that will benefit her longer in life,
For sure.
Yeah.
So going back to the question, so when you talk about if your kid is the person that's maybe not having the greatest experience or the person that's making the experience for another kid less enjoyable, like, how do you distinguish and how do you figure out which one your kid is? Yeah. And at the end of the day, which would you rather your kid be? I mean, that's a tough question, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to let you answer first.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, my answer is I don't want them to be either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like drama. So I tend to try to counsel my kids on how to stay out of drama because I think it's just emotionally exhausting.
It is.
So, but I want them to be leaders, but I want them to lead in the way that they're naturally born leaders. Like, I don't think everybody is meant to be a boss.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I don't think everybody is meant to be
a follower. You need both.
And I feel like the healthy spot is somewhere in the middle. And so I would want my kids to learn how to stand up for themselves, for sure, because they're not going to communicate everything. Like, part of the problem is maybe you don't even know your kids are struggling with stuff at school. So how do we set a good example if we don't even know there's a problem?
Yeah.
So teaching the kids to communicate it back to you, I think, helps put us in the position to teach them better.
Do you think if your kid is one or the other, one is easier to train them or equip them to be the other type of person? So say they're the bully. Do you think it's easier to go from being like the bully to helping them understand the things that they're doing and how they're impacting people to be the other type of person? Or do you think it's easier to take somebody who is the person that's getting bullied and help mold them into being more confident? Like, which one do you think is an easier?
Oh my God, I think both are really hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's probably why I'm like, I want to put mine in the middle because that's where you want to be. And I haven't really been in that scenario. I've definitely been or had to deal with my teenage girls, like, coming home in tears because their best friends, were mean to them and for no reason, or they think is no reason.
Yeah.
Like you said, I am certain there was words.
Something
happened. Yeah. Something happened. And I definitely go quickly to the guidance of like, well, asking what happened. Of course, they're not going to be reasonable with it.
Right.
And then helping, well, did you try communicating with them? Like, did you try taking the higher road? I think that's probably a valuable lesson on either side, is teaching the kids, like, well, how do you think they felt about something else? And can you sit down with them? And because kids don't ever just go up to a kid at school and go, hey, can we have a one-on-one conversation? Like, I want to talk through this. Like, not like adults do, right? Adults can like go up to the person or text them or call them and say, hey, can we talk through this?
Yeah.
Responsible adults, I would say most adults walk away from it and they don't want to deal with it, when really addressing it is how you fix the problem.
Yeah.
Or understand where the other person's coming from. I don't know. That's hard to speak on. Like, how do you get a kiddo that is really being a bully at school to understand how to be softer and compassionate?
Yeah.
And then how do you get a child who maybe is lacking confidence to be more confident?
Yeah. Because I can think through high school, some people that I went to school with, and how, they look back on high school and go, it was the worst years of my life.
Yeah.
And as a person like in the sidelines, like I can see where they come from. And I think it's just having awareness. And I really do think stuff like this stems from the parents first. I think that from us, we can definitely set the tone for if your kid is a bully.
We can give them the coping mechanisms.
Yes.
Right? That we've learned through experience. Mm-hmm. But how do we teach that to our kids?
It's through other interactions with other adults, I think.
What do you mean?
So like how you interact with the checkout lady at Walmart, or how you interact with your friends or your husband or just anybody you come encounter with. Yeah. I think that is truly where our kids learn the most from us, is just
by osmosis.
And seeing those interactions. And depending on how we react, or even the person that cuts you off in line in the car. Like, I think all those little moments are what build up to like help mold them at those young ages. Now, I'm not saying that we're completely in control.
No, I think that's a great example. Like, is the aggressive child like repeating, maybe she's in the car with her family and like somebody cuts them off and the dad goes off on a rant, right, in the car, or she hears them talking about somebody at work, like they're so stupid, and then the child mimics that behavior when maybe they only see the aggressive behavior or the passive behavior where it's like, I got in trouble, and and then they're not seeing the communication on the back side. So we just need to be more aware,
I think so,
of how we're acting and what we're doing. And maybe if we're caught in the moment of they see a bad reaction, right? Like understanding that it's okay if we didn't fix the problem or tell them the right way to handle it in that moment, but going back and
acknowledging it. Like saying, hey, this is how I handled this. I should have handled it like this.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is why Lila comes and apologizes.
Dude, I know that somebody told me this once, and maybe it was in a book or a podcast, but it talked about like in the mornings when you send your kid to school, like if you're rushing and you're yelling and you're like screaming at them, like how do you expect them to go into school and be like calm, ready to absorb information and learn? You know what I mean?
It's they're like going in with high anxiety.
Anxiety. One day I realized that, and so I dropped Grace off usually at school, and we try to like, we'll sing songs, like it tries to be a calming, whatever. Like, yes, we're rushing and going like crazy, but when I thought about that, because I can tell you right now, like growing up, like I love you, Mom, but like it was a lot of like, get in that car. Yeah. Why are you not up yet?
Hurry, let's go.
No, we don't have time for practice.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing? It was like all the things, right? And like, no, it didn't. I don't think it impacted me in any kind of way. But like, when you think about that, it's like, then you hand them off to the teacher and go, okay, here, they're ready to learn.
Yeah. Good luck.
Good luck.
Here you go.
So, but
I think that's really, I'm so proud of you. It's very insightful.
Look at us but now it's all back on us. Like, shit.
I know. I'm like sitting here going, oh my God, this is why this happens. I always say, like, so, I hate it when I come home from work and if my husband has had like a really hard day and the energy in the house, like I always tell him, I understand that you had a hard day, but here's why your energy is affecting me. Because then it stresses me out.
Yes.
Right?
Now y'all are both in a bad mood.
Yes, and now we're both in a bad mood. And so I try to like really talk that through with him. And I recognize that he had a really bad day, but also like.
I think that's important though, what you just said, is just acknowledging his hurt or like whatever is behind the bad day. I think just acknowledge. I think too often we don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And we just be like, why are you in a bad mood? But like acknowledging like, okay, I get that this makes sense.
Like if my teenager comes home and she's a complete, biatch to me, it's probably one of like 3 reasons. She's likely she's on her period. With that whole different topic on how to deal with teenage hormones.
That doesn't affect us at all.
But maybe she had like a rough interaction with a boy or one of her friends. And I just wish that sometimes they were more open as teenagers to communication, because I feel like that's where we really could help them. But maybe we established that relationship early on, and I don't know that I did that as much with her when she was little as I do my youngest. And maybe that's why my youngest communicates feelings more. I don't know.
So moral of the story is we all just need to be better communicators. Is that what I'm hearing? Basically.
Kind of. I think that's,
and own, like when we mess up, own it, communicate it, and then just overall be better communicators.
And if it's not in that moment, it's okay. If it's a week later, it's fine too. Mm-hmm. But like your example of being in the grocery store or wherever you were, where there was, you saw the child mimicking the mom's behavior. Like we're choosing to be parents, and I think we have to recognize that they really are, even before they can talk. Yeah. They're mimicking our
And all these things are hard. We're not saying these are easy. Like if it was easy, we'd all do it, and our children would just be perfect and the world would be living in harmony. Yeah. But clearly it's harder than
I'm going to forget this whole podcast in 24 hours and probably screw up my children even more. But I think it's good to talk about, because it kind of brings it to,
to the surface. It makes you acknowledge it, and you're like, oh yeah, I should be doing that.
Yeah. And now maybe when I'm driving Lila to school, I'll be more aware of like not being like, get the fuck out of the car. All the things. Well, I think that's awesome.
That was a good.
This was like a serious podcast.
It was.
Yeah. It's good though. I don't know. Maybe somebody's listening and it helped them just a little bit. It kind of helped me.
I hope so.
I feel like you taught me a lesson. I think you.
It's not every day I get to teach Katie something. She's always teaching me.
I love it. I wish I could go back and do some things differently too with my kids, but
it's never too late.
No. Well, this was awesome.
This was fun.
We'll wrap it up. Of course, you guys, if you like this, subscribe, like us. If you want to check out more. Come back for more if you want to check out Caden Lane, and all the fun things we've got going on there. And follow I'm That Mom and Caden Lane on all the different social media channels.
You never know what we're going to talk about, and neither do we.
Neither do.
Tune in.
Definitely. All right. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.